Hello world of YouTube and welcome to my Valentine's Day special where I'm going to be talking about my 6 favorite relationship movies. Now I was going to originally do 11, but because I sound like this and I feel like you guys don't want to listen to me too long sounding like this, because for the next couple of weeks you're going to be hearing this really stuffed up drawl, I'm going to break down instead my 6 favorite relationship movies. And these aren't necessarily rom-coms or movies that are all happy and cheery talking about love. These are instead 6 films that have relationships embedded at their core that I feel like either explore those relationships well or have aspects of love portrayed in a way that I think is nice and I think is done really well for one reason or another, whether they be fantastical in nature or young and innocent or reflective in their own sense. You know, like I said, not all of these are love stories. Not all of these are romantic movies in the sense. You're not going to see like You've Got Mail on here. There's no Disney princess love movies, even though I love Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and all those type of movies just fine. These are instead going to be 6 movies that I think tackle relationships in a meaningful way. And yeah, about half of these are sad and half of them aren't. But this is my list, and we're going to go ahead and dive on in.
It's a story of love, a tale of adventure. It's as real as the feelings you feel.
We're kissing again.
Someday you may not mind so much.
The Princess Bride. Not just your basic, average, everyday, ordinary, run-of-the-mill, ho-hum fairy tale.
As the grandpa says, it's not just a love story. It's one full of action, adventure, and a little bit of deceit. It's one of the most quotable movies of its ilk. It's a lot of fun to watch, a lot of iconic scenes, and at its core still does have a lot of romance with Wesley and Buttercup, you know, and it's kind of the most classic in nature romance explored in this list. Very fantastical in nature. Honestly, a lot of fun. You know, it's love that you want to see flourish, and it's a love that you see Wesley fighting tooth and nail for. And even amidst all of the twists and turns the story takes, you're happy to see it come right in the end. If you haven't seen it, it's a classic. You've got to go see it.
Oh, your heart last night. It's because I love you most.
I feel like if we're talking about a relationship and a romance of any sort, Blue Valentine is kind of an essential piece of the breakdown of a relationship in both sides. At least one that ultimately fails in the end, not without both parts of the relationship really trying to make it work. But I love how this film portrays the really flourished and swept up in romantics that the beginning of the relationship has, while also showing it fizzling out into really bittersweet anger towards both parties. I love Gosling and Williams' performances in this. I love that they do have this chemistry throughout the entire film. There's going to be another film on the list like this, but I love how this film presents the whole relationship, the whole package. And I love that how it tells its story, you know, juxtaposing the bright, shimmery beginnings, really punctuated by the credits, having it shown in literal fireworks, against the cold, angry dissolvement of the relationship into this bitter divorce. And it sucks. It sucks to see, it's hard to see, and it hurts to see because there's a real realistic approach to it in this, and when things get really low, they get a really big low point. But I love this film.
I have a love in my life. It makes me stronger than anything you can imagine.
He needs me, 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 he needs me.
So not only is this just a great, cute romance with a lot of cute moments, and I think that Emily Watson and Adam Sandler have really good chemistry. I like Adam Sandler in this film by and large. I love his performance in this movie. I love the direction of this film. Obviously, it's fucking Paul Thomas Anderson, so it looks great as a whole. But I like how his character grows from this relationship and he learns to overcome his own personal setbacks because of this relationship. And I love that the romance at this core is so passionate and strong, even if it is coming from a very awkward source. I like how his character progresses throughout this relationship and how it ultimately, amidst his own setbacks, he still finds someone who really accepts him for who he is, for his intense love that he can have. She sees that and she waters it and nourishes it, and I love that about it. It's classic in nature, but in execution it's a little more off-kilter and different. And I love that about it. Again, not necessarily a whole relationship as, seen as Blue Valentine or some of the other stuff later in this list. But it's a cute love story, just told in a much more artful way. And that's why I really like it.
It's true.
This is the best portrayal of, childlike innocence and love in the best way. The two leads, the kids in this film, are great. While these two have this sort of kinship from the beginning, it has its awkward moments, like the scenes on the beach, where they kind of speed through childhood in their own sense, in a very Wes Anderson sort of way. But I like how this sort of cutesy, this film kind of explores a cutesy kid relationship in a way that's a little meatier.
And I feel like this film tackles, forbidden love in the vein of, a Romeo and Juliet in a much better manner. On top of that, there's other, relationship shit going on in this movie with the other people in the film. And there's a lot in this film revolving romance and relationships in general, but the core kid relationship and how they deal with it and themes of, preteen sexuality and, getting swept up in love in its own fantastical sense is so very Wes Anderson. But I love the way it's done here.
I think that telling this type of story with that type of film just worked so very well.
Together.
So yeah, I mean, this is all of the breakup stuff from Blue Valentine, but drawn out across an entire movie. But not only that, you get to see these two really try to make their relationship still thrive amidst this divorce, and it hurts to see it fall apart. This movie just smacks you with some true, real shit, and it's hard to see. You really feel for Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson's characters. They may not be the best people, but man, do you really want them to see it make it work. And the last scene in particular, it fucking hit me, because it brings it back in a way, because the beginning of the film has all of the pre-divorce Blue Valentine stuff in a 10-minute piece. And the fact that it brings it back around to that at the very end, after you've seen them go through all of this shit together, trying to make it work, it just smacks you right here, and it's so raw from a writing standpoint and a performance standpoint that just, again, not necessarily a cutesy romance film, but if we're talking about films with relationships, this is one of the best deconstructions of a relationship ever, because clearly, by the end of the film, they still care about each other. They're just in two very different places as people, and that's fine, but I think that it's just sucks that the film ends where it does. And again, not a happy ending, but man, is it a poignant one, and one that I think is really, really good. I'm not going to sit here and say that the relationship in this film is healthy, because I don't think it is. At least not the one that the initial run of the Clementine-Joel relationship. Those elements showing that maybe it wasn't the best relationship, and the fact that Clementine got the procedure done in general kind of speaks volumes about that. But I like how this film takes a breakup and not only shows that maybe you can grow from it by not wanting to necessarily forget that it ever happened, but I also like that post the procedure that they both get, they both still have chemistry and they both still potentially end up together. And I like that the film opens the door for them in a way that they can learn from what maybe were the follies of their relationship before, and they can hopefully learn from them and grow as people. That's more the prospect I really like about this film, and I like how it explores the ideas of grief and reflection in a really interesting way. I love the way this story is told in general. I think it's a really creative film in that regard. But as far as a relationship goes, even if it's not necessarily the healthiest one, I like that by the end of the film, again, they're both given the opportunity to maybe grow from that. If they do still really love each other, if true love really is there, then they have the tools to maybe build upon that and form something better. Because clearly there's chemistry. Then maybe they can grow from that. And I like that they're giving them the opportunity to do so. Whereas a film like 500 Days of Summer, that's not the case. You know, while the ending of that film kind of spits in anything that could have ever stemmed from what the film may have been building to, this doesn't do that. I feel like this sticks the landing in that sort of scenario. And that's why it's here, and a film like that is not. And you may be wondering to yourself, Johnny, what about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World? Isn't that one of your favorite movies of all time? Why isn't that on here? Because I feel like at the end of the day, that movie is more about self-growth than a love story. Like, yeah, there's a relationship there. Do I think it's the healthiest? That's debatable. If you really deconstruct Ramona and Scott's relationship, I don't know if it's the healthiest, but I think that by the end of the film, it's more about Scott overcoming his own shortcomings and not using relationships as a way to do that. But that's just me, and that's why it's not here. But regardless, that was my list. What did you think about it? What are some of your favorite relationship movies or movies that explore relationships? Let's talk about that in the comments down below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you would like to join their ranks, linked in the description is my Patreon. I've been Valrak. You guys are good at such situations, and I'll see you another day.